Hi, first of all, welcome. Thank you for supporting me. In this video, I plan to explain to you in great details how I built the walls for my ICF pool. If you haven't seen the video, it's on YouTube. I do have a couple of links here on Patreon showing step by step how I built that pool. But there were a lot of questions, and I thought I'd use this opportunity to explain to you in great details why I chose to do the things the way I've done them. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you get, if you're planning on building a pool, I hope you get a lot of information out of this video. Just so you know, it's just how I built my pool. Now, I strongly believe that if you're gonna try this, to get the proper certifications to do it, you won't regret it. It'll still be cheaper than buying a pool from a local company. I saved probably half, if not even more than half of the money it would have cost me to get this pool built by a professional pool. Let's start with the footing. You can find plenty of examples of footings on YouTube. This is how I built mine. I used 2x6s, spread them 16 inch apart. That was my footing. This is how I built it. So in my case, I have 16 inch wide by 6 inches deep. I did install rebar, 2 of them, and I did hang them from these cross plates so that concrete would go all around. Now every 2 feet, I did install a rebar going up, and that is to lock in the wall that's going to fit on top so it doesn't move. Now, if you've never seen a Nudura product comes into 4 inches, 6 inches, 8 inch, and all different kinds of sizes. But that means you have, in this case, you have 6 inches of concrete in the middle. The forms can bend. They come in packaged this way to save space. Once you get them, all you have to do is fold them up and you're set to go. The webbings between the 2 forms have notches that will hold rebar. Quite simple. Every form comes with nubs and holes on each of them, on the top and on the bottom. These snap into place and are held in place by these, not sure if the camera can pick that up, by these clips right here. The Nudura form comes with a diamond pattern. This diamond pattern on the side indicates the locations of these webbings. The webbings are 1.5 inches wide that you can screw and have something to attach to. On all the forms, there are lines. These are cut lines. If you cut on these lines, the nubs and holes will stay aligned. So I'll just go over quickly on how we put these forms together and how they come apart. Just to show you, these forms come, they're folded together, and to open them up, pretty easy. You slide them side to side and they open up. This is a long form. This is 8 foot long, 96 inches. Pull it up and it's open. So when you stack your forms, at the bottom one there, let's say we have one that we want to stack on top, but there are some little teeth that hook inside one another right here. And if you align those to the ones in the bottom, like so, you can actually hear them click. Did you hear them? Now they're stuck together. If I pull on the top one, everything comes together. Pretty simple. So, for basically a demonstration purpose, I'm gonna cut this bottom form into 2 pieces. With just a general saw, I'll find the middle of it and cut this into 2 pieces. 4 foot is here. I'll put my saw on that line. There's a line here I want to find, so I'll cut this as straight as possible on that line. Now we'll transfer that to the other side. It will be here on that line. Now we have 2 4-foot sections. If I put the bottom one here, then I can put the top one on top, and as you can tell, everything aligns up perfectly. If, let's say we had 2 8-foot sections, like so, we could put them together with these clips, which Nudura sells, simply by joining them together, and these clips snap in together like so. So now we have 2 pieces together, they're locked into place. If I go and I snap this on top, all of a sudden everything's snapped into place. So you've done your excavation. Beneath my forms, I went with 10-inch of compacted crushed stone. I've used the tamper plate and I've wetted it down to get the maximum compaction. Everything was leveled off to 1/8 of an inch using a laser level. Once this was done, I created my footing on top of this crushed stone. Let's say, for example, this is the footing. Goes around the pool, the perimeter of the pool. Now I'll start to build my wall. So now that I have my footing all casted around the perimeter of the pool, I have my rebar here that sticks up from the footing, the concrete footing. You have pieces of rebar in the middle, that's every 2 foot. I'd start building my wall. Now, I'd start with the first course of Nudura. I'd bring my Nudura inside, get it close. close, you open up the walls, and you installed your first course of Nudura. So just to go over the steps again, I installed my first course all around with rebar. I come in with the second course on top. Align the webbings and nubs. Install your rebar all around, and you're done your second course. Now for the third course. Line your webbing. That's it. You have 54 inches of wall. The idea behind the 54 inch is the typical above ground pool is 54 inches. So I thought I'd use that as a measurement. Now that was just a quick and dirty way of explaining how Nudura goes together. Again, the course will go into great details about building with Nudura. I strongly recommend it. Now when I excavated the pool, I did a trench around the pool where the footing was going to lay down. Below the footing, crushed stone has been compacted with a compactor, and I also sprayed it with water just to get a better compaction. I didn't excavate the middle of the pool here just to have undisturbed soil and to have less material to bring back in. So I did save a bit there, but if you wanted to have a flat area and fill this with crushed stone after, that's up to you. I think it's wasting a bit of money, but yeah, so I did excavate to about here, filled everything between the form with crushed stone again, compacted it with the compactor all around, put some water, lots of compaction. You don't want this to move. Once this was compacted, I put about 2 inches of sand. Probably 1 inch is to the side of the form, and another inch of sand is on top of this form. Now, this sand was leveled off, and I did bring it up to the side of the pool just to have a small cove with a radius of about maybe 2 inches. It's not a big radius, you don't need a radius, but I just put one because it was easier for me. Once the sand was all installed, I purchased this bubble wrap. It looks like bubble wrap. It's a double bubble. There is a reflector side and a clear side. You buy this from pool supply stores online. It is made for underneath above ground pools. And I just laid that on top of the sand. And this basically is my finished pool with the liner on top. So the liner would come in here, around that small cove, and then on the floor. I basically built it the same way as a above ground pool, except I dug into ground and had this wall. The idea was basically to create a basement, and that's exactly what I did. It's the same wall as the basement. In hindsight, I probably should have spent a little bit more money and have this poured all in concrete, the floor at least. I would go with 2 or 3 inches of foam beneath and pour about 2 or 3 inches of concrete with reinforcing steel into it. I didn't do that. It was a cost-saving decision. And actually, you know what? For the price, I enjoyed the pool just as much. So it's up to you guys. The reason I didn't put the concrete floor was simply because of the cost. Now, as mentioned, I've had a lot of questions about how to attach the liner that goes inside the pool to the top of the wall. I went online at a pool supply or discount pool supply store online, and I bought these pool coping. Now the pool copings has 2-track that the liner attaches into and then locks into place. This pool coping goes on top of your wall. The liner goes in and attached and hangs on this pool coping. These pool copings are standard throughout the pool industry. They're very simple to use. They have tabs in back with holes that you screw in to the top of your wall. Now here's the issue. Attaching this pool coping to the top of the wall through the styrofoam, you're not going to get any strength from the liner pulling down on it. Everything is going to come peeling off. There's nothing there to hold this coping on. So not having to reinvent the wheel, these pool copings are usually attached to a steel wall that is buried underground. This steel wall is typically made out of 14 gauge steel. So, reverse engineering this, I need to screw that into 14 gauge steel. That's exactly what I did. Now what I did is I went to my local steel fabricator and I asked him to cut me and bend some channels made out of 14 gauge steel. I also asked him to cut out some tabs. I'll show you here. And these tabs will help grab to the concrete to keep this channel in place. Now that we have steel, 14 gauge steel, this pool coping is attached in the same manner as any in-ground pool. Now what I would do is I would take self-tapping screws and drill them in. And just like that, your coping is attached to the steel in the same manner as normal above ground pools. And this is actually very solid. Now so that the channel fits nicely and tight on top of the wall, what I've done is I've cut off all the nubs on top of this wall with the help of a table saw. Very simple, very quick and easy. Now once all my pool coping was installed inside the pool, on the inside edge, I needed to do a frame on the backside to contain the concrete. So I basically just took a piece of scrap OSB, attached it to the back of the wall, all the way around. Just made sure that it was level. It's not level, it's just an example. But as you can see, concrete would fill this space. Concrete would fill up to here and up to the top here. So now, as you can imagine again, if you want the liner to pull on this pool coping and try to pull this piece out, it's not gonna happen. So it's a very effective way of tying your pool coping to the top of your wall. Now one thing to consider is where your channels here end. There could be some sharp edges. You want to make sure that these are covered. The way I got around this is you could probably get away with it with just putting duct tape, but in my application I got this felt. Basically this is a bottom liner for a pool, an above ground pool. Is what they put beneath the sand and the liner. I just got one of these, some duct tape, and I basically just taped it to the wall. Look at that. So now the edges are all covered with this felt, and also this felt helps hiding little imperfections, the little dimples. It helps in hiding it. It doesn't eliminate all of them, and if you're not careful and you get wrinkles, you will feel this behind the liner. So you gotta be very careful putting this felt, making sure that there's no wrinkles. So for my application in my pool, what I did is I actually glued a piece of concrete slab on top, like so. So that was glued with masonry caulking. So you have concrete filling up this whole form up to here, and your 54 inches is here. Now here is where I sort of had an oversight. I should have realized it. My idea behind the whole pool was to try to mimic a above ground pool in ground. I've checked the websites everywhere, and the above ground pool typically are 54 inches. And that's what I have here at this level. But once you add the 54, and you add 5 inches to that, you're at 59. 59 inches from here to the top of your footing. Now, that doesn't seem like a problem. There's absolutely no issues for the liner. The liner is custom made, there's no problem there. Where I got problems was I wanted to put a above ground pool ladder, which would make it a lot easier. So if you think about the above ground pool ladder, it sits on top of here and it goes all the way down. The tallest one they make is for a 54-inch pool. Now I'm 5 inches too high here, which I'm at the end of the ladder, and it makes it that it's not ideal application. In hindsight, I would have probably just finished the top of that concrete to a nice broom finish here and started my pavers right in back here at this height. Now that would have helped with the height of the ladder. I wouldn't have had any issues. So it's just food for thought. This was my basic application. It's very simple if you take it step by step. I did put some rebar every level going straight through, and also I had vertical rebar installed at every second webbing. Now this creates a grid of rebar reinforcing steel inside the pool. This wall is as strong as a basement. It's built the exact same way as a basement. This pool wall is solid. If you have any questions on either the wall build, the Nudura stuff, the rebar, please leave your questions below.